My name is Crystal Zimmerman, I'm 28, and I work as a pastry chef in a small family cafe in Portland. I thought I understood what family meant until my own turned against me. Last Sunday, at my mother's memorial dinner, my father raised his glass, smiled at my older sister, and said, "You can finally move into Crystal's room now. She's leaving tomorrow." I froze, fork still in my hand, while everyone laughed like it was a joke, everyone except me. They sold my room, my share of Mom's cafe, even the house she built with her bare hands, without telling me. That night, I packed my bags, not because they told me to, but because I swore I'd come back one day and take back everything they stole. Would you forgive your family if they treated you like a stranger in your own home? I never thought betrayal could sound so casual, like a punchline tossed across a dinner table. The flicker of candles reflected in the wine glasses, the scent of roasted chicken and rosemary in the air, the picture of my mom smiling on the mantel, everything looked so normal, so painfully familiar. Yet I could feel something dying inside me, something that wouldn't come back again. I remember staring at my father, trying to read his face, searching for even a flicker of guilt. Nothing. Just that practiced, tired smile of his, the one he used whenever he didn't want to deal with emotions. And Vanessa, my perfect sister, she laughed the loudest. Her manicured hand brushed Dad's sleeve like they were a team celebrating a win. The silence between us stretched as I stood up. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Dad, what do you mean I'm leaving?" He didn't even look at me. "It's settled. Vanessa and Ethan are handling the sale. You'll get what's fair." What's fair? How do you define fair when you're erasing someone's entire life behind their back? I didn't cry that night. I wanted to. God, I wanted to collapse right there and scream, but the tears wouldn't come. I guess betrayal doesn't always hurt like a knife. It burns slow, from the inside out, like acid on skin. When everyone left, I sat alone in the kitchen. Mom's recipe book was still on the shelf, her handwriting faded from flour stains and years of use. She'd written little notes beside each cake. "Add cinnamon for warmth. Too much sugar hides the love." Her handwriting felt like a ghost's touch. I opened to her favorite page, lemon creme tart, for rainy days when you miss home. That was us. Rain, tartness, and the quiet ache of missing something that used to make sense. The cafe used to smell like butter and laughter. When Mom was alive, it was the warmest place in the world. She named it Zimmerman's Hearth because she believed love was something you baked into every bite. People came not just for the pastries, but because she remembered every face, every story. She'd slip an extra cookie into a child's bag or hand a free croissant to a man who looked like he'd had a rough day. After she died, everything changed. Dad turned cold, quiet, buried himself in bills and beer cans. Vanessa came back from Seattle, claiming she wanted to help run things. But her help felt more like a takeover. She repainted the cafe pale gray instead of Mom's sunflower yellow, replaced the wooden chairs with steel ones, even changed the name on the menu to V's Bakery. I remember standing behind the counter, looking at the sign like it was a tombstone. "Why change it?" I asked. Vanessa shrugged. "It's time to modernize. No one remembers old names." "She built this place," I said quietly. Vanessa smiled that cruel, condescending smile, "and now I'm building it better." Dad sided with her, of course. He always did. Maybe because Vanessa was older, sharper, the responsible one. Or maybe he just couldn't stand to look at me anymore because I reminded him too much of Mom. I stayed because someone had to keep Mom's recipes alive. I came in before sunrise, kneaded dough until my arms went numb, cleaned the ovens, paid the vendors. I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for her. But the cafe stopped feeling like home. The customers who used to call me sweetheart now glanced past me like I was part of the Daggered. Vanessa wore fancy clothes behind the counter, posting photos online with captions like, "The future of Zimmerman baking begins here." I wanted to comment, "You mean the stolen past," but I didn't. I bit my tongue until it bled. At night, I'd sit outside the shop under the flickering neon sign, staring at my reflection in the window. The words V's Bakery glowed above my head like an accusation. I could almost hear Mom's voice whispering, "Don't let them erase you, sweetheart." That whisper became my anchor, because that was the night I decided, if they wanted me gone, I'd give them a version of me they'd never forget. And someday soon, I'd come back not as the quiet girl who baked their pies, but as the woman who took everything back. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the rain tapping on the old roof felt like a clock counting down to the moment I'd have to walk away. I packed slowly, folding my clothes the way Mom used to, edges aligned, no wrinkles. It was stupid, really, worrying about wrinkles when my entire life was falling apart. When I zipped up my last bag, the silence hit me. The walls felt too thin, too hollow. I ran my fingers along the doorframe where Mom had marked our heights with a pencil: Vanessa, age 12, Crystal, age 8. The faint lines were still there, faded but real, proof that I belonged here once. Before I left, I took 3 things: Mom's recipe book, the necklace she gave me on my 18th birthday, a tiny silver spoon charm, and the spare key to the cafe, taped behind the flower bin. I didn't know why I took the key. Maybe because I wasn't ready to admit it was no longer mine. The next morning, the world looked gray and washed out, like someone had drained all the color out of Portland. I checked into a cheap studio apartment on the east side, a single window, leaky faucet, and the smell of old paint. The kind of place where dreams go to hibernate. I spent the first few days doing nothing but staring at my phone, scrolling through photos of the cafe. Vanessa had already posted pictures of herself smiling beside a sold sign in front of our house. The beginning of a new chapter, she'd captioned it. It felt like she was writing my obituary. I wanted to comment on something, anything, but my throat tightened every time I tried. The anger didn't feel sharp. It was heavy, exhausting. Like wading through wet cement. Still, anger can be useful when you learn how to aim it. I opened Mom's recipe book again. Inside the back cover was a note I'd never noticed before. "Sweetheart, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Remember, nothing built with love can truly be stolen. You just have to bake it again from scratch." Those words broke something open in me. I decided I wouldn't just mourn what they took, I'd rebuild it. And one day, I'd make sure they tasted the bitterness of what they'd done. 2 weeks later, I found a job at a downtown cafe called Bakers & Co. They didn't know who I was, and I didn't tell them. It was freeing in a way, being anonymous, being no one. The head chef, Daniel, was calm and observant, with flour on his sleeves and kindness in his eyes. The first time he tried my lemon tart, he paused mid-bite. "You baked this?" "Yeah," I said, bracing for criticism. He nodded slowly. "It tastes like something someone loved." That line hit harder than he knew. I didn't plan to trust him, but there was something steady about him, like a solid countertop in a room full of chaos. He didn't ask about my past. He just handed me the morning shift and said, "Show me what you can do." For the first time in months, I felt useful again, but peace never lasts long in my life. One afternoon, while checking emails on my old laptop, I noticed a new message, subject line: "Ray, account access notice." It was from the family's old accountant, forwarded by mistake. The email mentioned Vanessa's authorization to close joint business funds and an attached document with Mom's name on it. Only, Mom had been gone for almost a year. I stared at the screen, my heart thudding. Fake signatures, legal jargon, transfers I didn't understand. They forged her name. I felt dizzy, gripping the counter for balance. My stomach twisted, and for a second I thought I might throw up. They hadn't just taken my home, they'd erased her legacy, rewritten her hand into their lies. That night, I couldn't stay still. I went back to the cafe, our cafe, using the spare key. The place was dark, except for the faint glow from the neon sign outside. The smell of sugar and coffee lingered in the air, familiar yet foreign. I crept toward the office, heart pounding. Mom's framed photo was gone. The desk drawers had been emptied. I opened the file cabinet and found stacks of new invoices under V's Bakery LLC. But one file remained tucked at the back, an old ledger with Mom's handwriting. It was a list of suppliers, orders, dates, and a note scrawled on the last page: "Keep originals safe with Maggie, trust her." Maggie, Mom's best friend. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. The next day, I visited Maggie's small law office downtown. She looked older, softer somehow, her hair silver and her eyes kind. "Crystal," she said, her voice trembling, "you look just like her." Hearing that nearly undid me. We sat in her cluttered office, surrounded by folders and the faint smell of peppermint tea. I told her everything: the sale, the forged signatures, the way Dad had turned against me. When I finished, Maggie sighed. "Your mother suspected this might happen. She left me some documents, but I thought you knew." She opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope sealed with red wax. My mother's initials, LZ. Inside were copies of the original ownership papers for the cafe, signed and notarized. Proof that Mom had intended me to inherit it. My hands shook as I held them. It wasn't just paper, it was her voice, her will, her trust. Maggie placed a gentle hand over mine. "If you want to fight this, Crystal, you'll need more than anger. You'll need patience, evidence, timing." I nodded slowly. Patience had never been my strength, but revenge I could learn. That night, for the first time since dinner, I slept. Not peacefully, but with purpose. Because now I had something my sister didn't, the truth. And if I'd learned anything from baking, it was that timing was everything. A week after meeting Maggie, I finally gathered the courage to confront my father. He still lived in the same house. The one Mom had painted seafoam green because she said it reminded her of calm days by the coast. Now it looked smaller, colder, as if the warmth had peeled off with the paint. I knocked twice before stepping in. The air smelled like whiskey and dust. The TV murmured some old game show while Dad sat slumped in his recliner, his hand wrapped around a half-empty bottle. "Crystal," he said, squinting like I was a ghost. "Yeah, Dad, it's me." He didn't get up, didn't even mute the TV. "What do you want?" "I found Mom's original ownership papers," I said, voice trembling. "You know she left the cafe to me." His lips tightened. "That was a long time ago. Things changed." "No, you changed," I snapped. "She trusted you to protect her work and you sold it to Vanessa like it meant nothing." He slammed the bottle down, liquid splashing onto the floor. "Enough, you think I wanted this? Vanessa's keeping it alive at least. You bake for someone else now." The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted him to see the truth, to understand that I wasn't the enemy. But his eyes were empty, like every ounce of love he'd ever had for me had dried up. "Leave it alone, Crystal," he muttered, looking away. "You're only making things worse." I took a step forward. "For who? For the people stealing from Mom's memory or for the daughter you're ashamed of?" He didn't answer. The silence said everything. So I turned and walked out, my chest hollow but my mind clear. I wasn't going to beg for his love anymore. That night, I met with Maggie again at a quiet diner downtown. I showed her the email about the forged signatures and she frowned. "They're covering their tracks faster than I expected," she said. "But we can still trace the transactions if we find the accountant who processed the sale." "I know who that is," I replied. "Mr. Hanley. He used to work for Mom before Vanessa replaced him." Maggie nodded. "Good, start with him. And Crystal, keep everything to yourself. If they sense what you're doing, they'll bury you before you can move." I smiled faintly. They already buried me once. Tracking down Mr. Hanley wasn't easy. His old office was boarded up, his number disconnected. I finally found him tending a community garden on the outskirts of town. When I introduced myself, he froze. "You're Leela's daughter." "Yes," I said, "and I think someone used her name to sell what was hers." He hesitated before pulling off his gloves. "I can't talk about that, not without protection." "Maggie's helping me," I said. "We have her papers." That changed everything. His shoulders eased and he motioned me toward a bench. "I warned your father," he whispered. "Told him the documents didn't look right, but Vanessa was persuasive. She said you were unstable, that you wanted to ruin the business." My chest tightened. "And he believed her." He nodded sadly. "I'm sorry, Crystal, I didn't want to get dragged into it." He reached into his coat and handed me a small flash drive. "You didn't get this from me?" "What is it?" "Copies of every transfer they made under your mother's name. Enough to prove everything if you know what you're doing." I thanked him and left, gripping that tiny piece of metal like it was a lifeline. My hands shook all the way back to my apartment. When I plugged it into my laptop, I saw dozens of files, bank statements, wire transfers, contracts. Vanessa's signature appeared everywhere. And every few lines, Dad's initials. My pulse was hammered. My own father had helped forge Mom's name. I sat there in the dark, the only light coming from the screen, and whispered, "Why?" The answer came from memory. Mom once told me, "Your father's biggest fear is losing control. He'll trade love for power any day." Now I finally understood what she meant. I spent the next few days studying every file, printing copies, organizing them in a binder labeled evidence for Mom. When Daniel noticed the dark circles under my eyes, he asked, "You okay?" "Just busy," I said, forcing a smile. He didn't press. He just handed me a cup of coffee and said quietly, "Whatever you're fighting, I hope you win." Something in his voice made me pause. There was no pity, just belief, and maybe that was enough to keep me standing. A few nights later, I went back to the cafe again. Vanessa was locking up, wearing a red coat that screamed success. "Well, look who's haunting the past," she said with a smirk. Miss Lemon Tart herself. "Enjoying your empire?" I asked. "Very much, thanks." "Maybe next time don't abandon it." "I didn't abandon anything," I said softly. "You stole it." Her smile faltered for just a second. "You always were dramatic. Maybe you should have taken up theater instead of baking." "Funny," I said. "Mom used to say that about you." Her eyes flashed. "Careful, Crystal, you don't want to start something you can't finish." "Trust me," I said, stepping closer. "I never start what I can't finish." That was the night I made my promise real. Not a wish, not a dream, a plan. They thought they'd erase me, but I still had the recipes, the truth, and the will to fight back. Mom built everything from scratch once. Now it was my turn. And when the day came that I served Vanessa and Dad the taste of their own betrayal, I'd make sure it was baked perfectly, golden, sweet on the outside, and burning underneath. The first rule of revenge is patience. It's not the kind of thing you can bake on high heat and expect to come out perfect. You have to let it rise slowly, evenly, until it's ready to burn. I reminded myself of that every morning at Baker's & Co. while rolling dough under the hum of the early shift lights. The smell of butter and yeast helped me focus. I couldn't afford anger right now. Anger made noise and I needed silence. Maggie was right, timing was everything. I had the documents but no leverage yet. If I went to the police too soon, Vanessa would spin the story before anyone could even hear me. She had charm, contacts, and money. I had flower, faith, and fury, so I decided to build something she couldn't ignore. Daniel noticed the change first. "You're working like you're training for a war," he joked one morning as I kneaded the dough hard enough to make the counter shake. "Maybe I am," I said. He laughed, but when he saw my face, the laughter died. "Crystal, are you okay?" I wanted to say yes, but I'd already used up all my lies for the month. Instead, I smiled faintly. "Do you ever get tired of losing things?" He frowned. "Losing? Yeah, like every time you start over, something or someone takes it away." Daniel leaned on the counter, his gaze steady. "You can't lose what's meant for you. Sometimes it just takes the long way home." It was a cheesy line, but it stuck. That afternoon, after my shift, I sat in the storage room with my laptop and opened the flash drive again. This time, I looked closer at the financials. Most of the transfers were routed through a company in Nevada, E&H Investments. Ethan and Vanessa's initials. Subtle, there were timestamps too. I matched one of the dates to Mom's hospital records. It was the same day she was in surgery. They'd started stealing before she even died. My stomach clenched. They didn't wait for her to die, they planned it that way. I told Maggie. Her face hardened, eyes narrowing like a blade. "That's premeditated fraud, possibly elder abuse, but we need corroboration." "The accountant's files help, but we'll need witnesses." "Like who?" "Employees, suppliers, anyone who saw your mother sign papers or noticed her condition at the time." I nodded. "There's one Clara. She worked part-time at the cafe. She used to bring Mom her medicine." Maggie smiled slightly. "Good, start there. But Crystal, don't confront them yet. We'll build quietly." I promised I would. I lied again. Clara still lived in the same small blue house near the edge of town. When she opened the door, her eyes widened. "Crystal, oh my goodness, look at you." "I wish it were under better circumstances," I said softly. We sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by the smell of chamomile tea and lemon cookies. I told her what I'd found, the forged documents, the transfers, the lies. She pressed her lips together, thinking. "Your mother never signed anything after her second surgery," she said finally. Her hands were too weak. "I used to help her hold the pen just to write grocery lists. There's no way she signed a legal contract." "Would you be willing to say that in writing?" She hesitated, then nodded. "For your mom, yes, she was good to me, she didn't deserve this." Her words warmed me more than the tea ever could. That night, I typed everything up. Maggie helped me notarize Clara's statement the next day. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a crack in their perfect story. But the thing about cracks is, once they appear, the whole facade starts to crumble. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. "Stay out of this or you'll regret it." No name, no signature, just that. I stared at it for a long minute before replying. "You should have sent that before you stole from my mother." They didn't respond. At the cafe, Vanessa posted another photo, her and Dad smiling beside a banner, "Grand reopening of V's Bakery." They renovated everything. Even the logo was new, a golden V over a crown. I laughed bitterly. Royalty built on fraud. Daniel caught me scrolling. "Old coworkers? Old enemies," I muttered. He raised an eyebrow. "You know, you keep saying stuff like that and never explain." "Maybe someday," I said. He didn't push, but I could tell he was curious. I wasn't sure if that scared me or comforted me. One evening, after closing, Daniel brought me a box of old recipe cards. "Found these in storage," he said. "Thought you might like to look through them." I flipped through, smiling faintly at the faded handwriting, then froze. One of the cards wasn't like the others. It was written in my mother's handwriting, LZ at the bottom corner. "How did you get this?" I whispered. "Was mixed in with a batch of old files from a catering client," he said. "Some woman named Patricia Hanley. Hanley, the accountant's wife. The universe has a funny way of delivering breadcrumbs when you're paying attention." The card wasn't just a recipe, it was a message. On the back, Mom had written, "If anything happens to me, trust Maggie, and don't let them change the name of the hearth." I exhaled shakily. "Too late, Mom, they already did, but I could still change it back." The next morning, I printed out flyers for Leela's Legacy, a small pop-up bake stand I planned to open on weekends. I used Mom's recipes, the real ones, not the diluted versions Vanessa sold. The profits didn't matter. What mattered was the name. Daniel offered to help. You'll need permits, suppliers, maybe a marketing push. I know a guy who can help with press coverage. Why would I need to press? He smiled. Because the best revenge is served publicly. I liked the sound of that. On opening day, we set up a small white tent outside the Saturday market. I wore Mom's necklace and baked until my hands ached. The air smelled like sugar and courage. When customers asked about the name, I told them, it's my mother's legacy. Word spread fast. Within an hour, the line wrapped around the block. Someone posted a photo online with the caption, "Real Zimmerman recipes are back." By evening, we sold out. And that's when Vanessa showed up. She stepped out of her car in designer heels, eyes hidden behind sunglasses even though the sun was gone. "Well," she said, crossing her arms, "if it isn't the ghost of bakeries past." "Welcome," I said lightly. "We're all sold out. Guess authenticity, still in demand?" Her jaw tightened. "You can't use the family name, Crystal. That's trademark infringement." "It's my mother's name," I said, voice cold. "And unlike you, I don't forge things." She flinched just slightly. Then she smiled. "Enjoy your little market stand. It won't last." Maybe she was right, maybe it wouldn't. But the tremor in her voice told me something. She was worried. And for the first time in a long time, that made me smile. The Monday after my first pop-up, I woke up to 50 missed calls. Half were from numbers I didn't recognize, and the other half were from reporters. Apparently, someone had written a blog post about my stand, the forgotten daughter behind Portland's favorite bakery. It went viral overnight. They dug up my mother's obituary, old photos of the cafe before it became V's Bakery, and even screenshots from Vanessa's social media. By noon, my name was trending locally. And I knew exactly who was watching every post, Vanessa. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Daniel burst into the kitchen mid-shift, grinning from ear to ear. "Your story? Everywhere, you're basically a baking celebrity." "Great," I said dryly, scrubbing a mixing bowl. "That's exactly what I wanted, public humiliation with frosting on top." He leaned on the counter, studying me. "You knew this could happen. You used your mom's name." "I didn't leak anything." "Doesn't matter." People love drama almost as much as they love desserts. I rolled my eyes, but he wasn't wrong. That afternoon, a thick envelope arrived at Bakers & Co. No return address, but I didn't need one. The legal letterhead said it all: cease and desist. Vanessa was suing me for trademark infringement and defamation of business reputation. Classic. Maggie read through the letter in silence, her lips pursed tight. "She's bluffing," she said finally. "They don't have the right to trademark your mother's name." "But this is a power move. She wants to scare you." "She's doing a good job," I muttered. Maggie handed the papers back. "Let her dig her hole. If this goes to court, discovery laws will force her to produce financial records. We'll get everything we need." I stared at the stack of papers, half expecting them to burn in my hands. "So, I don't back down," her eyes hardened. "You never back down from bullies, Crystal. You make them choke on their own lies." The next few weeks were chaotic. Reporters started camping outside V's Bakery, asking Vanessa about me. She played innocent, all smiles and honeyed words. "I just want what's best for the family. My sister, been through a lot since Mom passed." She always called me her sister when she needed sympathy, but beneath the PR polish, I knew she was panicking. Her perfect facade was cracking, one headline at a time. I watched from a distance, anonymous in my car, as she stood in front of the bakery cameras flashing, pretending she wasn't terrified. A part of me wanted to walk up, look her in the eyes, and say, "I see you." But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I focused on growing Leela's legacy. Daniel helped me rent a small commercial kitchen downtown. Every Friday night, we'd bake until dawn: pies, croissants, lemon tarts. He handled the business side while I focused on the recipes. It was exhausting but thrilling. For the first time since Mom died, I felt alive. Sometimes, when the oven timer beeped, Daniel would hum under his breath. "What song is that?" I asked once. He shrugged. "Something my mom used to sing. She was a baker, too." I smiled. "Guess we both inherited flour in our veins." He chuckled. "Yeah, flour and unresolved family trauma." That made me laugh harder than I'd laughed in months. But just when things started to go right, the universe reminded me it still had claws. One night after closing, I returned to my apartment to find the door slightly open. My heart dropped. I pushed it gently. Inside, everything looked untouched. Almost. The binder labeled evidence for Mom was gone. I tore through every drawer, every corner. Nothing. The flash drive too vanished. Someone had been inside. I called Maggie immediately. "Don't panic," she said, though her tone betrayed her worry. "Did you back anything up?" "Yes, on my laptop. But it's here. What if they pack a bag, come stay with me for a few days?" Her calm steadiness was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. At Maggie's house, I sat awake all night, staring at the ceiling. This was the price of making noise they were striking back, but stealing my proof wouldn't erase the truth. The next morning, I checked my email. A new message sat at the top. Subject, you should have stayed quiet. From Untraceable at Temp Mill, attached was a single photo of me standing at the Saturday market booth. The caption read, "Cute stand, shame if it burned down." My blood went cold. I showed Maggie, she didn't flinch. "We'll go to the police. This is harassment." I nodded numbly, but a strange calm came over me. They were scared enough to threaten me now. That meant I was close. A few days later, while helping Daniel unpack ingredients, I noticed a delivery invoice stamped with E&H Investments. My pulse spiked. "Where did this come from?" I asked. He checked the box. "Supplier sent it." "Why?" I turned the invoice over. It was an order for flour dated 6 months before Mom died, billed to Zimmerman Holdings LLC, E&H again. It wasn't just a front for money laundering. It was their umbrella company, the same one used for the fake property sale. I rushed home and cross-referenced everything I could find. And that's when I found it, the paper trail leading straight to Ethan Harper, Vanessa's boyfriend. His name appeared not only on the bakery transactions, but also on 3 separate real estate deals under fake shell companies. One of them listed my father as a silent partner. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I printed everything and went straight to Maggie. When she saw the documents, she exhaled sharply. "This is it, the missing link." "So what now?" "Now we dig into Ethan's records. If he's been laundering money, there'll be federal involvement. You expose him and Vanessa goes down with him." I swallowed hard. "You mean twist the knife?" Maggie gave a small, grim smile. "No, sweetheart, you turn it." Later that week, I met Daniel for dinner at a quiet bar. He could tell I was somewhere else in my head. "You're thinking about them again," he said. "Always," I admitted. "It's like they live rent-free up here." I tapped my temple. He nodded slowly. "So make them pay rent." I laughed softly. "You sound like Maggie." "I'll take that as a compliment." I studied him for a moment. "Why are you helping me, Daniel? You barely know me." He hesitated. "Because I've been where you are. My brother stole my inheritance after my dad died, said I was too soft for business. I spent years trying to prove him wrong." "Did you?" He smiled faintly. "Eventually, but revenge tastes better when it's baked slowly." I raised my glass. "To slow revenge, then?" "To justice," he corrected. That night after I got home, I opened my laptop again, scrolling through Ethan's trail of fraud. Each file felt like a matchstick in my hand. He'd underestimated me, they all had, and I was done letting them write the story. This time, I'd be the one to set the oven and decide how long they'd burn. When I walked into Maggie's office the next morning, she already had 2 cups of coffee waiting, mine black, hers full of cream. "You've been digging, haven't you?" she said before I even sat down. I nodded, sliding the folder across her desk. "Ethan Harper. He's been laundering money through fake real estate deals since before Mom died, and my father signed off on at least 2 of them." Maggie flipped through the pages, her lips tightening with every sheet. "Good God, this isn't just family fraud. This is organized deception. Can we use it?" "Oh, we'll do more than use it," she said, eyes flashing. "We'll make them choke on it." I wanted to smile, but anger was a heavier flavor. The kind that sits on your tongue and doesn't wash away. That night, I called Daniel and asked him to meet me at the cafe after hours. When he arrived, the market lights were off, and the air was sharp with the smell of sugar and rain. "I need a favor," I said quietly, "and it's not a small one." He didn't hesitate. "Name it." I handed him a USB drive. "I need you to help me trace these transactions online, Ethan's company, Dad's accounts, everything." He frowned. "Crystal, this could be dangerous. If they find out they already broke into my apartment," I cut in. "They already threatened me. I'm not hiding anymore." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but we do this smartly. No more solo missions." It was strange, how much trust I suddenly had in him. Maybe it was because he didn't ask why. He just said how. We spent nights at the cafe's back office, surrounded by laptops, receipts, and half-eaten pastries. Daniel handled the tech, I handled the paper trail. Together, we pieced it all together like a jigsaw puzzle of betrayal. And slowly, the picture came into focus. Ethan's name appeared everywhere, yes, but always paired with one other signature, Martin J. Zimmerman, my father. Each deal, each forged sale, each wire transfer, he'd signed them all. At first, I refused to believe it. Maybe they'd forged his name too. Maybe he didn't know. But then Daniel clicked on a hidden file, an email thread between Ethan and Dad. "Martin, you'll get your cut once the property sells. Don't worry about Crystal, Vanessa's handling her. We can't afford sentiment now." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Don't worry about Crystal. He hadn't just betrayed Mom's legacy. He'd betrayed me. I felt the air leave my lungs. My hands went cold, but I couldn't stop shaking. Daniel closed the laptop gently. "I'm sorry," I shook my head. "No, I'm not sorry. I'm done pretending this is just about money. He chose them over her, over me." That night, I went for a walk through the rain. Portland streets glistened like spilled ink, the city's heartbeat pulsing under the neon lights. I stopped outside V's bakery. It was closed, but I could still see Vanessa's reflection in the glass display, her poster smile staring out like she owned the world. Inside, the shelves were lined with my mother's recipes. The handwriting had been traced and printed onto neat little cards labeled family favorites. Fake handwriting, fake family, fake everything. Something inside me snapped. I pulled a marker from my pocket, the one I used for labeling ingredients, and wrote on the window, right under the golden V, "Truth always rises." I didn't care if she saw it. I wanted her to. The next day, my phone buzzed nonstop. Vanessa had seen the message. She posted a photo of it online with the caption, "Sad to see my sister vandalize our family business. Please pray for her mental health." Thousands of comments flooded in, some supporting her, some calling her out. I read every single one until Daniel finally took the phone from my hand. "Stop feeding the monster," he said gently. "She's twisting everything again. Let her, the truth's cooking. Give it time." He was right. I didn't need to yell. I just needed to keep baking. 2 weeks later, Leela's Legacy got an invitation to the Portland Community Fair, a local event that drew thousands. It was the perfect stage. I signed up under the independent vendors section, but this time I wasn't hiding behind small talk. I ordered new packaging with Mom's face printed on every label. Beneath it, the words, "From the original hearth." Daniel helped design the booth. He even borrowed a projector so we could play old home videos of Mom baking, laughing, teaching me how to whip cream without fear. It was simple, heartfelt, and devastatingly effective. By midday, a small crowd gathered, whispering. Someone recognized Mom's voice from an old TV feature, connecting the dots. A local journalist snapped photos and asked for an interview. I told her the truth. Not the whole truth, just enough. That my mother's legacy had been stolen, that I was reclaiming it, and that some families forget the difference between inheritance and theft. By evening, our booth sold out, again, and that's when I saw Vanessa pushing through the crowd. Her expression was a mix of fury and panic. "Turn that off," she hissed, pointing at the video of Mom smiling on the screen. "You can't use her likeness without permission." "Permission?" I said softly. "From who? You, or Dad, the man who forged her will?" Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer. "You know exactly what I mean, Vanessa. You and Ethan forged everything, contracts, signatures, bank papers. You think you're safe because Dad signed off? Newsflash, that makes him your accomplice." Her lips trembled. "You don't have proof." "Oh, I do," I whispered. "And you just admitted it in public." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just turned and stormed away, her heels echoing on the pavement. The crowd murmured. Someone asked, "Was that really her sister?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, that was the thief who taught me what justice tastes like." That night, Maggie called. "Crystal, brace yourself. Ethan's been arrested in Nevada, tax fraud investigation." I sat down hard. "You're kidding." "Not at all. His name came up in 3 separate shell company audits. It's federal now." "And Vanessa? She's next, but your father, he's still protected for now. They don't have direct evidence of his intent, just signatures." "We'll need more." I rubbed my temples. "He'll bury everything before they find it." "Not if we're faster," Maggie said. "There's a court hearing scheduled in 2 weeks over the cease and desist. If we can get financial disclosure ordered, we'll blow the door wide open." 2 weeks. That was my window. I spent every night after that preparing, printing files, organizing timelines, rehearsing statements. Daniel helped me practice answering legal questions until my voice didn't shake anymore. The night before the hearing, I dreamed of Mom again. She was in the kitchen, her hands dusted with flour. "Are you sure you want this, sweetheart?" she asked. "I want the truth," I said. She smiled sadly. "Truth can burn just as much as lies." "I don't care," I whispered. "I'll walk through the fire if I have to." When I woke, my cheeks were wet, but I felt stronger than I had in years. The courthouse smelled like old paper and tension. Vanessa arrived with her lawyer, smug in a navy suit. Dad came too, though he wouldn't look at me. When our eyes finally met, I saw something flicker, fear, maybe, or guilt. I couldn't tell. Maggie leaned close. "Remember, you're not just defending yourself, you're exposing them." As the judge called the case, I took a deep breath and stood tall. Vanessa's lawyer started with rehearsed charm. "Your Honor, my client merely seeks to protect her family's intellectual property from unauthorized use by her emotionally unstable sister." When it was my turn, I stepped forward. Your Honor, I said, voice steady, this isn't about property. It's about perjury, forgery, and the systematic theft of my late mother's legacy. I have documents, witness statements, and most importantly, the truth. Then I turned, locking eyes with Vanessa. And the truth doesn't need permission. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Maybe it was the marble floors, maybe the weight of decades of lies echoing off them. Or maybe it was just him, my father, sitting 3 rows behind Vanessa, his eyes fixed on the floor, pretending not to know me. The hearing wasn't supposed to be dramatic. It was just emotion over trademark rights. But it became something else the moment Maggie stood up and said, Your Honor, before we proceed, the defense has supplemental evidence indicating fraudulent use of business documents under the name of the deceased, Leila Zimmerman. You could feel the air leave the room. The judge raised an eyebrow. You're alleging forgery? Yes, Your Honor, Maggie said calmly, and not just once, systematically, over multiple transactions. Vanessa's lawyer sputtered, Irrelevant, this is a civil case. Not if the assets used to file it were acquired illegally, Maggie replied. The judge leaned back, studying Vanessa. Then I suggest we see those documents. I stood and approached the bench, my hands shaking slightly as I handed over the folder. Inside were the notarized witness statements, the ledger, and the emails Maggie and I had compiled. I glanced back. Vanessa's face was pale. Dad's expression barely moved, but his fingers tightened around his cane. The judge skimmed through a few pages, his brow furrowing deeper with each turn. I'll be referring to this for investigation. Ms. Zimmerman, he said, looking at me now, you may continue using your mother's likeness and name until the ownership is resolved. Case adjourned. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. Maggie leaned close and whispered, That's a win. Feels more like the first round, I said. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Crystal, is it true your sister forged your mother's will? Are you planning to press charges? Do you think your father was involved? The last one made me pause. I wanted to shout yes, that he'd sold me out, that he'd chosen greed over love. But part of me wasn't ready to say it out loud, not yet. Once you say something like that, you can't take it back. So I just said, the truth has a way of baking itself, it just takes heat and time. They laughed, but I meant it. That night, Maggie and I celebrated quietly at her house with store-bought wine and leftover pie. To your first legal victory, she toasted. To the first crack in their glass castle, I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They'll hit back harder, you know. I'm counting on it, I said. They didn't make me wait long. 2 days later, a black SUV pulled up outside my apartment. 2 men in suits stepped out and handed me an envelope. Inside, notice of property reassessment and debt collection. They were suing me for damages, $500,000, claiming I'd maliciously defamed the Zimmerman family business. I laughed out loud. $500,000? I don't even own a car. Maggie sighed when I showed her the papers. They're trying to drown you in court fees. Don't bite. I'm not backing down. I know, she said softly, but you'll need money for this fight, Crystal, real money. That night, I sat in the dark bakery kitchen, staring at my mother's framed photo. What would you do? I whispered. How do you fight people who don't feel shame? Her eyes in the photo looked calm, kind, almost alive. And that's when I realized Mom never fought with anger. She fought with grace and truth, so I decided to weaponize both. Daniel helped me set up a small crowdfunding page. We called it Bake Back the Truth. I posted a simple video, me in the kitchen, rolling dough, talking straight into the camera. My name's Crystal Zimmerman. My mother built a bakery with her hands and her heart. It was stolen from her, and now her name is being used to sell lies. I don't want your pity. I want justice. If you've ever lost something to greed, this story for you. Within 24 hours, donations poured in. People sent messages from all over. This reminds me of my dad's diner. Stay strong, Crystal. Your mom would be proud. By the end of the week, I'd raised enough to cover my legal fees and then some. Vanessa must have seen it because her next post was another passive-aggressive masterpiece. It's sad when family turns grief into profit. The comments didn't go the way she hoped. People flooded her page with the hashtag Justice for Leila. 2 nights later, my phone rang. It was him, Dad. Crystal, he said, voice gravelly, tired. What do you want? Can we talk, alone? I don't think we have anything left to say. Please, he whispered. It's not what you think. I hesitated. Every rational part of me screamed hang up, but there was still that small, broken piece of me that wanted answers. Tomorrow, at the house, 1 hour. The house looked smaller than I remembered, maybe because it was emptier. Vanessa had moved out weeks ago, probably into Ethan's condo before he got arrested. Now it was just Dad and the ghosts. He was waiting at the table, an unopened bottle of whiskey beside 2 glasses. I didn't come to drink, I said. He nodded. Old habits. For a while, we just sat there, the silence heavy. Finally, he said, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "You forged Mom's will," I said coldly. His face crumpled. "Vanessa said it was just a technicality, that your mother wanted us all to share everything. She convinced me it was the right thing. And you believed her." He rubbed his eyes. "After your mother died, I wasn't thinking straight. I trusted the wrong person." I wanted to scream, "You trusted greed," but instead I asked, "Why didn't you stop when you saw what she was doing?" He looked up, tears glinting. "Because by then, I was in too deep. Ethan had control of the accounts. If I went against them, I'd go down too. So you let them erase her, and me." He said nothing, just stared at the empty glass like it might answer for him. When I stood to leave, he said something that made me stop. "Your mother, she knew. Before she died, she found out about the first forged contract. That's why she changed her mind about the inheritance. She told me she wanted you to have it all." My stomach dropped. "You mean she confronted you?" He nodded slowly. "We fought. The night before her last surgery." I felt the room tilt. "You lied to her." He didn't deny it, and that was when it hit me. Mom didn't die just leaving me a bakery. She died knowing the man she loved had betrayed her. I walked out into the rain, my chest on fire. I wanted to cry, but the tears just wouldn't come. Vanessa, Ethan, the forged papers, they were symptoms. But the disease, it had always been him. That was the real betrayal, not losing the bakery, not the lies. But realizing that the person who was supposed to protect our family had been the one who broke it apart from the inside. When I got back to my apartment, Daniel was waiting outside, soaked from the rain. "I was worried," he said. "Maggie called, you didn't answer." "I went to see him." He searched my face. "And," I looked away, "he's worse than I thought." Daniel didn't ask more. He just took my hand and said quietly, "Then it's time to stop defending the past, Crystal. You don't owe him forgiveness." I wanted to believe that, but forgiveness wasn't the problem anymore. I just wanted the truth to finally see daylight. The next morning, I dropped a sealed envelope into the post, an anonymous tip addressed to the Oregon Financial Crimes Division. Inside, copies of the emails, the contracts, and one sentence written in my mother's handwriting from an old note she'd left Maggie. "If anything ever happens to me, look at the hands holding the pen." It was time for those hands to shake. The news broke 3 days later. I was at Baker's & Co., icing a tray of croissants, when Daniel turned up the volume on the cafe's TV. A reporter stood outside our old family home, rain streaking across her microphone. "Sources confirm that local businessman Martin Zimmerman is under investigation for financial misconduct and possible forgery tied to the sale of Zimmerman's Hearth, now operating as V's Bakery." The words felt unreal. For a second, all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator behind me. Then the camera cut to a photo, Dad shaking hands with Ethan Harper at some charity event. Harper, who was arrested last week in Nevada for tax evasion and fraud, is believed to have been in partnership with Zimmerman in several shell companies linked to false property transfers. The screen flickered. My father's face, cold and unfamiliar, stared back at me. I sank onto a stool. My legs didn't trust me anymore. Daniel turned off the TV and set a cup of coffee in front of me. "You okay?" I wanted to answer, but the words came out broken. "He actually did it." "Hey," he said softly, "this isn't your guilt to carry. You didn't forge anything." "No," I said, looking at the dark liquid in the cup, "but I inherited the mess." By noon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, distant relatives, people who wanted my side of the story. I ignored all of them. I wasn't ready to be the headline again, but the world doesn't wait for your permission. That night, Portland Chronicle published a front-page article, "Betrayed Daughter Blows Whistle on Family Empire." They used my market photo, the one of me smiling behind a tray of lemon tarts. Beneath it, a caption that made my stomach twist: "Truth always rises." Someone had seen the message I wrote on Vanessa's window weeks ago. Now it was the story's title. Vanessa, of course, lost her mind. She called me 6 times before I finally answered. Her voice shook, not with sadness, but rage. "Do you realize what you've done?" "Yeah," I said calmly. "Told the truth. You've ruined everything. The investors are gone, the bakery's closing, Dad made his choices." She let out a bitter laugh. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're a joke, Crystal, you always were." I didn't reply. Silence hurts more than words sometimes. Before hanging up, she spat, "You'll regret this." But this time, her threats didn't scare me, they bored me. That weekend, I visited Mom's grave for the first time since the hearing. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still soft, the air thick with that post-storm stillness. I knelt, brushing away the leaves covering her name. "Hey, Mom," I whispered. "I think the storm finally hit." My throat tightened. They're paying for it now, even Dad. I don't know if that makes you proud or disappointed. Maybe both. The wind picked up, cold against my face. I keep thinking about your words. Love can't be stolen if it's baked with care, but maybe love can be betrayed, and maybe some things shouldn't be forgiven. For the first time, I didn't cry. I just sat there, tired but steady, like the last ember after a fire. When I got home, Maggie was waiting on my doorstep. She didn't even say hello, just held up a folded newspaper. "Congratulations," she said. "The DA just confirmed they're filing charges against Martin Zimmerman and Vanessa Harper." My hands shook. "You're serious?" She nodded. "Forgery, fraud, and obstruction. Ethan's testimony sealed it." "Ethan?" I asked, startled. "Turns out he's cooperating, probably hoping for a lighter sentence. But his statement confirms everything. Your father authorized the fake will and Vanessa knew." I sank onto the steps, overwhelmed. "It's over," Maggie smiled faintly. "No, sweetheart. It's just starting." The next day, the police arrived at Dad's house. The footage was everywhere. Him in handcuffs, escorted down the front steps, the camera lights reflecting off his face. He didn't look angry, just tired. When a reporter shouted, "Do you have anything to say to your daughter?" he said nothing. Watching it felt wrong. He was my father, but I didn't recognize the man on that screen. I turned off the TV, sat on the floor, and buried my face in my hands. I thought victory would feel lighter. It didn't. It felt like lifting a mountain and realizing it, made of ashes. Vanessa vanished for a while after the arrest. Rumor said she fled to California, trying to salvage what was left of her reputation. But social media is a cruel mirror. Her followers turned on her fast. She deleted everything within a week. Meanwhile, Leela's legacy exploded. The online orders doubled, then tripled. Daniel kept saying, "We need staff," but I couldn't celebrate yet. It didn't feel like success, it felt like survival. Every time a customer smiled and said, "Your mom would be proud," part of me wanted to believe it. The other part whispered she'd be heartbroken it came to this. 2 weeks later, Maggie called with an update. "They've offered a plea deal," she said. "If your father cooperates against Vanessa, they'll reduce his sentence." "Will he take it?" She hesitated. "He asked if he could see you first." I went quiet. The thought of sitting across from him again made my stomach twist, but I needed closure, and maybe, selfishly, I wanted to see if he'd finally admit it to my face. The prison visiting room was cold and loud, filled with vending machines and voices that didn't belong together. When he walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was thinner, his shoulders smaller. "Crystal," he said softly, "you look like her." I didn't sit right away. "You wanted to talk," he nodded. "I signed the plea. I told them everything. About the will, the transfers, Ethan, all of it." "Why now?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I kept waiting for the right moment to do the right thing, but it never came, so I made one." I watched him for a long moment. "Do you even regret it?" He swallowed. "Every day. Or just getting caught?" He flinched but didn't answer. I took a deep breath. "You taught me how to measure ingredients, Dad. You said too much salt ruins sweetness, but you put bitterness in everything we had." His eyes filled with tears. "I know." "No," I said quietly, "you don't." When the guard called time, I stood. "Goodbye, Dad." He reached out, but I stepped back. Some hugs can't fix what words already broke. After that day, I stopped dreaming about revenge, because revenge was finished. What was left was rebuilding, but the past wasn't done with me yet. 2 nights later, a plain envelope slid under my apartment door. No name, no return address, just a flash drive inside. When I plugged it into my laptop, a single video file popped up. The footage showed Vanessa sitting in a car, talking to someone off camera. Her voice was sharp, panicked. "I told Martin to burn the documents. If they find that account in my name, I'm finished." Then, faintly, a man's voice, "Too late for that, sweetheart. Ethan." The timestamp was recent, after his arrest. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat thunderous. Whoever sent this wanted me to see it. Maybe Ethan himself, or maybe someone else entirely. Either way, the storm wasn't over. It had just shifted direction. I sent the file to Maggie immediately. She replied 10 minutes later. "Maggie, this changes everything. Vanessa's going down for obstruction, but I need to know where this came from." Me, no idea, but someone out there wants her to fall. Maggie, be careful, Crystal. When people start turning on each other, truth isn't the only thing that rises, blood does too. Her warning echoed in my head long after I put down my phone. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about survival. And in this family, survival always came with a price. I didn't sleep that night. The image of Vanessa in that car looped in my head like a broken reel, her eyes wild, her voice sharp, the tremor she couldn't hide. I kept replaying the last line. Ethan's voice. "Late for that, sweetheart?" He was mocking her, even from a cage. By dawn, I gave up on sleep and called Maggie. "Someone wants Vanessa destroyed," I said as soon as she picked up. "Correction," she replied, voice crisp. "Someone wants you to destroy her." That thought sank deep. The flash drive hadn't just been evidence, it was bait. The next few days were a blur of noise and headlines. Every news outlet in Portland ran the story. Zimmerman scandal deepens. New footage implicates sister. Somehow, the video had leaked before we even submitted it to authorities. I didn't do it. Maggie didn't either. But the damage was done. Vanessa's reputation imploded overnight. Talk shows debated her guilt, influencers dug up old posts, and anonymous accounts flooded her feeds with messages like, "You deserve it." She'd finally become what she always feared most, hated. And for a fleeting moment, I thought I'd feel vindicated. I didn't. Watching her crumble felt hollow, like biting into a pastry that looked perfect but tasted like ash. Daniel noticed before I said anything. "You've been quiet," he said while we closed up shop one night. "Just tired." He wiped his hands on a towel and leaned against the counter. "You won, Crystal. Why does it feel like you lost?" I didn't answer right away. "Because this isn't what Mom would have wanted. She believed in kindness, in redemption." "Redemption, for people who want it," he said softly. "Vanessa never did." He was right, but part of me still couldn't let go of the idea that I'd become what I hated, someone who let bitterness do the talking. 2 days later, a package arrived at Leela's legacy. No return address again. Inside, a handwritten note and an old photo. The note read, "You don't know me, but I know what they did to your mother. Call me." At the bottom, an address and a single name, Lauren. The photo was of Mom and me when I was maybe 10, standing outside the bakery, arms around each other. Behind us, barely visible, was another girl, long dark hair, a shy smile. Lauren, my cousin, I hadn't seen her in years. She used to help Mom during summers before Vanessa fired her after a misunderstanding about money. I dialed the number. A woman answered. "Crystal? Lauren? I wasn't sure you call." "I wasn't sure you were still alive," I said honestly. She laughed softly. "Yeah, I get that a lot. Listen, I sent you that video." My heart skipped. "How did you get it?" "Ethan gave it to me before he got arrested. He didn't know I was recording our conversation. He thought I was still working for Vanessa." "Why would he trust you?" "Because I made him." Her tone was flat, dangerous. "Meet me," she said. "Tonight, there's more you need to see." I met her at an old diner on the outskirts of town, the kind that smelled like burnt coffee and second chances. Lauren looked older, sharper. Life had sanded down her softness. She slid a folder across the table. "Everything Vanessa did after your mom died is in here. Bank accounts, offshore transfers, fake suppliers. I collected it while I worked for her. I planned to sell it, but when she fired me, I kept it as insurance." I flipped through the pages, my stomach tightening with every number, millions, hidden everywhere. "Why now?" I asked. "Why help me?" Lauren sipped her coffee, eyes unreadable. "Because your mom was the only one who ever treated me like family. Vanessa made sure I lost everything after she pushed me out. Consider this payback." I studied her. "You're not doing this for justice." "No," she said, "but you are, so maybe we can meet in the middle." That night, I brought the folder to Maggie. She read through it like a surgeon studying an X-ray. This is gold. Offshore laundering, fake payroll, shell vendors. Vanessa could do serious time. "But if this came from Lauren, can we even use it?" "Anonymous sources are tricky," she said, "but if we can verify it independently, yes." I hesitated. "Maggie," she said, "Ethan gave her the video, but he's been in custody for weeks. How could he?" Maggie's eyes flicked up, sharp. "Unless he wasn't the only one." The implication made my blood run cold. That evening, I went through the files again, line by line, until I found it, a payment from V's Bakery to M. Zimmerman Consulting, 2 months after Dad's supposed retirement. He'd still been helping her. Even after the investigation started, I called Maggie immediately. "Check your email," I said, voice shaking. Dad was still involved. He was getting paid from the same offshore account Vanessa used. "Crystal, are you sure?" "Positive. The transfers are right there," she sighed. "Then the plea deal might collapse. If they find out he kept working with her after his confession, they'll throw the book at him." My chest tightened. "He's my father, but if he's still lying, then you let the system do what it's supposed to," she said gently. "No more saving people who hurt you." The next morning, reporters were camped outside Leela's legacy again. Apparently, someone had leaked the new financial files. They wanted a comment. I gave them one. "I'm done being silent," I said, standing under the market awning as cameras flashed. "My family thought they could bury the truth under money and manipulation, but I grew up watching dough rise under pressure. And if you keep adding heat, eventually it bursts." It wasn't a speech. It was a warning. That night, Daniel found me sitting on the curb outside the bakery, hands dusted with flour, heart heavier than ever. He sat beside me, silent for a while, then he said, "You know what scares them the most?" "What?" "That you're not scared anymore." I looked up at the dark sky, the neon sign flickering faintly above us. "They took everything, Daniel, home, money, even Mom's memory, and yet here I am." He smiled softly. "That's the thing about people like you. They can burn your house but not your fire." For the first time that night, I let myself lean against his shoulder. Just for a moment. A week later, Vanessa was arrested at the airport trying to leave the country. Video, the offshore files, and the statements from Ethan and Dad had painted a perfect picture of guilt. When the news broke, Lauren texted me one line, "Told you truth rises." But something about that message unsettled me. Her words echoed too neatly, like she knew that phrase would mean something to me. And then I remembered the graffiti on Vanessa's window weeks ago. The phrase "truth always rises." I hadn't told anyone I wrote it. My stomach dropped. Lauren hadn't just been watching Vanessa. She'd been watching me. I called Maggie right away. "She's playing a bigger game," I said. "Lauren knew everything, she even leaked the first story." "Then we find out what she wants before she finds a way to use you." But Lauren wasn't hiding. She sent another message minutes later. "Meet me where it all started. Midnight, you'll want to see this." Attached was a photo of the old Zimmerman house, my childhood home. At midnight, I drove there, rain slicking the pavement. The house stood empty now, a for sale sign tilting in the yard. Lauren was waiting on the porch, a flashlight in her hand. "Took you long enough," she said. "What is this?" She pointed toward the front door. "Proof your mom didn't die the way you think she did." My breath caught. "What are you talking about? Your father didn't just betray her on paper, Crystal. He betrayed her in ways that never made it to the reports." I felt the world tilt. "You're lying." She met my eyes, steady. "Am I?" Then she handed me another flash drive. "Watch it," she said. "Then decide what you're really fighting for." Before I could say anything, she disappeared into the rain. Back in my car, hands trembling, I plugged in the drive. The screen flickered and there she was, Mom, in a hospital room, pale but smiling, whispering into the camera. "If something happens to me, don't trust Martin. He's not the man he used to be. Protect yourself, sweetheart." The date was one day before her surgery, the night before she died. I covered my mouth as the tears finally came. The truth I'd been chasing had always been waiting. And now that I had it, I wasn't sure I wanted it anymore. The video ended with my mother whispering my name. "Crystal, if you ever see this, don't let them break you." Her voice cracked on the last word. And just like that, the years between us vanished. I wasn't the woman with a bakery and a vendetta. I was the little girl kneeling on the kitchen stool, watching her mother dust powdered sugar onto a pie. I sat there in the dark car for what felt like hours, rain pounding the windshield, unable to breathe, unable to move. My mother knew. She'd been scared, and she'd tried to warn me. But Lauren, how had she gotten that recording? When I finally called Maggie, my voice was barely a whisper. "She left a message, Maggie. Mom, she recorded something before she died." Silence on the other end, then quietly, "What does it say?" "That I shouldn't trust my father." Maggie exhaled slowly. "Crystal, you need to bring that to the DA immediately." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because it's not just evidence, it's her last words. I'm not ready to turn her into a headline." Maggie was quiet for a moment. "Then at least don't let Lauren use it. If she has a copy, she's playing a dangerous game." "I think she already is," I said softly. Lauren's message came the next morning. "You saw it. Now you know why he deserved to fall. We can finish this together. Finish this." Those two words made my stomach twist. This wasn't justice for her. It was revenge, pure and simple. And she was dragging me toward the same edge she'd already jumped off. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the bakery. I needed noise, warmth, something alive to drown out the ghosts. Daniel was there early, sleeves rolled up, flour streaking his forearm. Looked up when I walked in. "You look like you saw a ghost," he said gently. I kind of did. I told him everything, the video, Lauren, the message. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it, just listened. When I finished, he said, "You know, some people chase truth like it's light, but the closer they get, the more it burns." "Are you saying I should stop?" He shook his head. "I'm saying be careful who you let hand you the matches." I smiled faintly. "You always have a metaphor ready, don't you?" "Occupational hazard," he said. "You bake enough burnt crusts, you learn what fire does." That night, I couldn't focus on anything. I scrolled through Lauren's messages over and over, trying to decode her angle. She risked a lot helping me, but for what? Money, revenge, or something deeper? Then my phone buzzed. Another message. "She died for more than the bakery. There's a document in the attic under the loose floorboard by the window. Find it before they do." I froze. The house was still under police seal, but the investigation was nearly wrapped up. If that document existed, it could be collected as evidence soon. I called Maggie. I need access to the house. That's not possible, Crystal. It's important. I mean it, it's a sealed site. You could get charged for tampering. Maggie, please, Mom left something there. Then let the investigators find it. They won't know where to look, she sighed. You're letting grief steer again. Maybe, I said. But grief, been right so far. I didn't tell her what I was planning. I didn't tell Daniel either. Some things you have to do alone. That night I drove back to the old Zimmerman house. The gate was chained, but the lock was easy enough to cut. I'd learned a few tricks from repairing bakery freezers. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Every creak sounded like an accusation. The living room still smelled faintly of bourbon. The walls carried the ghost of family photos long taken down. I made my way upstairs, flashlight trembling in my hand. Mom's old room was the only one left untouched. I crossed to the window, heart pounding, and knelt beside the loose floorboard she'd once complained about. The nails gave easily. Underneath lay a manila envelope wrapped in plastic. On it, Mom's handwriting. For my daughter, only when the truth is ready. My throat tightened. I slid it open carefully. Inside were several sheets of paper, hospital forms, legal correspondence, and one letter. I unfolded the letter with shaking hands. Crystal, if you're reading this, then everything I feared has happened. I discovered money missing from the business months ago. When I confronted your father, he promised to fix it, but I knew it was too late. He and Vanessa have been planning to sell everything. I didn't want you to hate them, I just wanted you safe. Maggie knows where my real will is. Trust her. And never let Vanessa rewrite who you are. My vision blurred. She'd known everything. And she'd trusted me to finish what she couldn't. A sudden noise downstairs snapped me out of it, a door closing softly. I froze, heart pounding. Then a voice, "You really shouldn't break into sealed property, cousin." Lauren, I turned slowly. She was standing at the bottom of the stairs and a flashlight pointed at me. "How did you know I'd be here?" "I told you to come," she said with a shrug. "I didn't think you'd actually do it alone." She climbed the stairs, her boots clicking on the wood. "What do you want, Lauren?" "I want what's mine," she said simply. "Vanessa ruined me. Your father cost me my job, my savings, everything. You got the sympathy, the fame, the bakery. I got nothing." My jaw tightened. "So this was never about Mom." "Oh, don't be so naive. I cared about her, sure, but justice doesn't pay rent. You used me. I gave you the push you needed," she snapped. "You should be thanking me. Without me, your father would still be free." I stepped back, clutching the envelope. "You think I'll let you profit off my mother's death?" She smirked. "You already did, sweetheart. The story's out. The bakery's booming. You think those donations came because people like pie?" I felt heat rise in my chest. "Get out." "Fine, keep your saint act. Just remember, you wouldn't have your precious truth without me." She turned and left, the sound of her laughter echoing down the stairs. By the time I drove back to the city, the anger had hardened into resolve. I couldn't let Lauren twist the narrative too. At dawn, I met Maggie at her office and handed her the envelope. She read the letter silently, then looked up. "This proves your mother's will was tampered with. It'll end the civil suits permanently. And Lauren? She's a liability. Stay away from her. If she tries to contact you again, forward everything to me." I nodded. "She said something else about the will, that you have the real one." Maggie blinked. "She's right. Your mother gave me a sealed copy years ago, told me not to open it until everything was settled. I think we've reached that point." She unlocked a drawer, pulled out a small safe, and set it on the table. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with time. Together, we opened it. "I, Leela Zimmerman, leave my entire estate, business, and intellectual property to my daughter, Crystal Zimmerman. To my husband, I leave forgiveness if he ever earns it." The line hit me like a blow. Mom had written forgiveness like it was something tangible, something you could leave behind in a box. I looked at Maggie, tears threatening. She really believed he could earn it. "She believed in redemption," Maggie said softly, "even for people who didn't deserve it." I exhaled shakily. "Then maybe I can start believing in it too." But Lauren wasn't done. That evening, Daniel found me in the bakery office, staring blankly at the letter. "Hey," he said, gently touching my shoulder. "You okay?" I shook my head. "I don't know, it's like every truth I find just breaks something else." He hesitated, then said, "Truth doesn't break things, Crystal. It just shows you what's already broken." I met his eyes. "What if I don't want to see any more?" "Then close your eyes," he said softly, "but don't stop moving." I leaned into him, the smell of sugar and rain filling the space between us. For a few seconds, I could almost believe life could start again, but my phone buzzed on the counter. A new message from Lauren. "You think it's over? Look deeper. Your mom didn't die naturally." The room spun. I read it again. Then again, no, it couldn't be. I looked at Daniel, voice trembling. She's lying, right? He didn't answer. Because sometimes silence is the loudest truth of all. I stared at Lauren's message until the words blurred. Your mom didn't die naturally. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I'd spent years blaming betrayal for everything that fell apart, but never, not once, had I questioned the way she died. She'd gone in for a routine surgery. Complications, they said, cardiac arrest. Everyone grieved, then moved on except me. Now those words dug into old wounds like glass. I forwarded the message to Maggie with trembling hands. She called instantly. Crystal, what does she mean by that? I don't know, but if there's even a chance. No, she cut in firmly. Don't go down that road. It's dangerous. You said that about the video too, I said quietly. And you were right, but I went anyway. Because you had evidence. Right now you have a text from a manipulative woman with a grudge. Then let's prove her wrong. That night, I dug through old files, news clippings, and the hospital discharge papers from Mom's surgery. Everything looked normal, too normal. Until I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before, the attending physician's name. Dr. Everett Lane. The same surgeon who'd later partnered with Ethan Harper's company on medical charity initiatives. The same man who'd received large donations from V's Bakery Holdings after Mom's death. I sat back, my stomach twisting. No way. The dates lined up. The transfers happened days after the surgery. I called Maggie again. The surgeon Dr. Lane was on Vanessa's payroll. She swore under her breath. You're kidding. I wish I was. This changes everything. I'll pull his medical record requests first thing tomorrow. I hesitated. What if Lauren, telling the truth? Then we'll prove it, Maggie said. Legally. But deep down, I knew Lauren wasn't waiting for it to be legal. The next morning, Leela's Legacy opened late. I couldn't face customers. Daniel noticed immediately. You found something, didn't you? He asked. Just a name, Dr. Everett Lane, he frowned. Isn't that? Yes, he worked with Vanessa and Ethan. He exhaled sharply. Crystal. If you dig into this, you're going to find something you can't undo. I already have, I said. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Then promise me something. Whatever happens, you stop when it starts to destroy you. I tried to smile, but it felt like paper cracking. That ship sailed a long time ago. Later that day, a plain brown envelope appeared in the bakery's mail slot, no return address again. Inside was a USB stick and a note in Lauren's sharp handwriting. If you still think she died naturally, watch this. My stomach dropped. I plugged it into my laptop. A hospital security recording played, grainy footage from a hallway. Mom on a gurney, nurses rushing. Then a man in surgical scrubs, Dr. Lane, speaking quietly with another figure whose face was partially obscured. The timestamp. 11:42 p.m., 10 minutes before the reported time of cardiac arrest. Then the doctor handed the other figure a white envelope. The person nodded and walked out. The camera caught just a glimpse of the second person's wrist, a gold bracelet, the same one Vanessa always wore. I felt the air leave my lungs. Maggie arrived within the hour. We watched the video together twice, neither of us speaking. Finally, she said, if this is real, it's damning, but it's also circumstantial. There's no audio and the footage doesn't show what happened next. I know what it means, I whispered. They paid him to do something. Crystal, I need to talk to Dr. Lane. Absolutely not, she snapped. You can't confront him, not without a lawyer, not without protection. I'm not confronting him, I said, grabbing my coat. I'm just asking for the truth. The hospital parking lot felt like another world, clean, sterile, detached from the chaos inside me. I found Dr. Lane in his office, older now, hair gray, eyes sunken from years of guilt or exhaustion. He looked startled when he saw me. Crystal Zimmerman? You remember me, he nodded slowly. I do, your mother was a remarkable woman. She was, I said, voice trembling, so remarkable that someone decided she didn't deserve to live. His eyes widened. Excuse me? I slid my phone across the desk. The paused frame of the security video glared back. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. He stared at it for a long moment, then leaned back, rubbing his temples. I can't discuss this. You already are, I said. Tell me the truth, he sighed. There was pressure, financial, ethical. Your sister and her fiancé promised funding for our surgical wing if we expedited your mother's discharge. I didn't tamper with her care, but yes, there was a payment. So you took their money. I thought I was doing good, expanding the hospital. And she died. His voice broke. I never meant, I stood abruptly. Everyone says that right before the truth hits the floor. I left before he could answer. In the hallway, my knees nearly buckled. It wasn't confirmation of murder, but it wasn't innocence either. Lauren was right. There was more to Mom's death than anyone admitted. When I got back to my car, another message was waiting. You're getting close. Meet me tonight, same diner. Bring the will, She wanted proof I'd found it. I texted Maggie, Lauren wants to meet again. She's asking for the will. Her reply was instant, don't go, she's dangerous now, let the DA handle it, but I couldn't sit still. I needed answers. The diner was half empty, neon lights flickering like dying stars. Lauren sat in the back booth, smiling like she'd been expecting me all her life. You brought it? No, I said. You tell me what really happened first. She smirked. You think Vanessa could plan something like that alone? Please, your father signed off on everything. Liar. You want proof. She slid a small recorder across the table. He confessed to me years ago, said your mom was going to expose their fraud. Vanessa convinced him that if she died during surgery, it'd be clean. He just had to make sure the hospital didn't ask too many questions. I froze. That's impossible. Play it, she said. I pressed the button. A familiar voice filled the air, my father's, shaky, muffled. It was supposed to be quick. Leela wasn't supposed to suffer. They promised it. Look natural. God forgive me. The sound hit like a blade. I dropped the recorder, hands shaking. Where did you get this? I recorded it the night you left for college. He told me everything, but I kept it until it could do the most damage. My stomach turned. You used me to destroy him. I helped you destroy them all, she said coldly. And now it's my turn. That will you're protecting, it's worth a fortune. Give it to me and you'll never see me again. I stared at her, heart pounding. You think I'd sell my mother's words? I think you're tired, she said, and tired people do desperate things. Her voice was almost tender, like she pitied me. Then she stood. You have 3 days, Crystal. After that, I tell the world your family murdered your mother and you covered it up. She walked out, leaving the recorder behind. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words replayed in my head, murdered your mother. I wanted to believe it was a lie, that Lauren had fabricated everything. But the voice on that recording was real. I'd recognize that guilt anywhere. When dawn broke, I made a decision. I was done running from the truth. If my mother died because of them, the world deserved to know. I sent copies of the recording and the hospital footage to Maggie. Then I sat at my mother's old kitchen table, hands shaking, and wrote a statement. My name is Crystal Zimmerman. For years, I believed my mother's death was an accident. It was. My father and sister conspired with a surgeon to cover up the financial crimes that destroyed our family. This isn't revenge. This is justice for her and for everyone who's ever been silenced by the people they trusted most. I didn't post it yet. I just stared at it, trembling, tears dripping onto the paper. Daniel came in quietly, reading over my shoulder. Once you send that, he said, there's no turning back. I know. Then do it for the right reason. I looked up at him. What's the right reason? He touched my hand. Peace. For the first time, I wasn't sure if peace was even possible. Morning came gray and brittle, like the world had forgotten how to breathe. I hadn't slept at all. The recorder sat on my kitchen table beside a cup of cold coffee. Every time I tried to press play again, my thumb froze. It was his voice. There was no denying it anymore. Dad hadn't just betrayed Mom, he'd been part of the reason she never came home. For years, I'd told myself she died peacefully, believing she was loved. But that voice on the recorder, shaky, haunted, full of shame, was proof that love had been her undoing. I didn't cry. I just felt something inside me close, like a door I'd been too afraid to lock. Maggie came over around 10. Her eyes were dark, her voice all business. I've verified the footage and the recording. Both are real. I nodded numbly. They'll need your official statement. Once we file, the DA will reclassify your mother's death as suspicious. It'll trigger a full criminal inquiry. What about Lauren? She's wanted for extortion now. We traced her bank account. She's been selling stories to tabloids. Of course she was. Maggie sighed. Crystal, if we go public with this, everything explodes. You'll be the face of it. Every headline, every photo, daughter exposes father for mother's death. Are you ready for that? Ready? Such a strange word. I've been ready since the day they told me she wasn't coming home, I said quietly. By noon, the story broke. Not from me, from Lauren. She posted the recording, the video, everything on a gossip blog. Her caption, the Zimmermans' perfect family was built on murder. Within an hour, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Hundreds of messages. Some are sympathetic, some vile. The press camped outside the bakery again, cameras flashing every time I moved. Daniel locked the door, pulled the shades down. You can't face them right now. I don't have a choice, I said. Yes, you do. You don't owe them your pain. But it wasn't about them. It was about Mom. I opened the door, stepped outside into the storm of microphones and shouting voices. Crystal, did your father admit to killing your mother? Is it true Vanessa helped cover it up? Are you working with the police? I looked straight into the cameras and said, my mother's name was Leela Zimmerman. She built everything this family ever had. And they destroyed her for it. If you want the truth, wait for the trial. Until then, stop turning grief into gossip. Then I went back inside and locked the door. The next few days blurred into each other: statements, subpoenas, investigators. Maggie handled most of it. I just showed up where she told me. Then one night, a letter came addressed in my father's handwriting. No stamp, hand-delivered. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Crystal, I don't expect forgiveness. I only ask that you listen. I didn't plan it. I was desperate. Vanessa convinced me the surgery was risky, that paying for a favorable outcome was a form of protection. I believed her. I believed everyone except your mother. And that's my sin. I'll spend whatever years I have left paying for it. But please don't let Lauren twist this into more poison. She's not doing it for you. She's doing it because she wants to bury what she did next. Dad, what she did next? My hands trembled. What else was there? The next morning, I visited the police station to hand over the letter. The lead detective, a tired-looking woman named Avery, skimmed it and frowned. Your father claims Lauren's hiding something. Did he say what? No, Avery tapped her pen. We've had Lauren under surveillance since her leak. You might want to hear this. She turned her monitor toward me. Grainy footage from a motel parking lot. Lauren meeting with a man. He handed her a thick envelope. She passed him a flash drive. Who's that? I asked. Avery zoomed in. The man's face came into view. Dr. Everett Lane. My stomach dropped. She's blackmailing him. Looks like it, Avery said grimly. We think she threatened to leak his role in your mother's death unless he paid. Does he know she has the recordings? Probably not anymore, but she's running out of time. Once he realizes she can't protect him, he might do something desperate. That night, I dreamed of Mom again. She was in the kitchen, humming, dusting sugar across a pie. But when I reached out to touch her, she turned and her face was gone. I woke up shaking. The next day, Daniel insisted we close the bakery early. You need rest, he said. I can't, I murmured. If Lauren's still out there, she's not your responsibility. She made it my responsibility the moment she used my mother's name. He sighed, knowing he couldn't stop me. Then at least don't go alone. We found her easily enough. A hotel near the river, room 214. I knocked once. Lauren opened the door with a half smile. Took you long enough. Where's the rest of it? I asked. The files, the recordings, everything you haven't sold yet. She laughed. Why would I tell you that? Because it's over, I said. The police know you blackmailed Lane. Her smile faltered. They can't prove anything. They can if I testify. She rolled her eyes. And ruin your saint act, please. You think the world will love you after they realize your family's a nest of liars and killers? They already know, I said, and they still send me letters, not because I'm perfect, but because I didn't run from it. Lauren's expression hardened. You really think this ends with you walking away? I can still ruin you. I've got proof you tampered with sealed evidence when you broke into that house. I don't care, I said quietly. If that's the price of truth, fine. For the first time, she looked unsure. You really are your mother's daughter, she said softly. Too stubborn for your own good. Then she stepped aside. You want the files, they're yours, I'm done. She handed me a USB drive. I didn't trust her, but I took it anyway. As I turned to leave, she added, tell Maggie to check the date on the will. It's not what she thinks. I frowned. What does that mean? But she just smiled, a strange, sad smile. Goodbye, Crystal. 2 hours later, I was home, exhaustion clawing at me. I plugged the USB in. There were dozens of files, emails, photos, scanned letters. Most of it confirmed what we already knew, but one folder caught my eye. Drafts LZ will. I opened it. Inside was a scanned document dated 3 days before my mother's death. I, Leila Zimmerman, amend my previous will to include 10% of my estate for my niece, Lauren Hale, in gratitude for her loyalty. My breath caught. Mom had planned to give Lauren something after all. But then, Lauren had never known. Vanessa must have hidden it. I sat back, realization washing over me. Lauren hadn't been born a monster, she'd been made one by the same lies that had broken all of us. The next morning, I went to the police to hand over the drive and explain what I found, but before I could even reach the station, the call came. Lauren was dead, found in her motel room. Overdose. No note. For a long time, I just sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, unable to breathe. She'd been many things: cruel, manipulative, broken, but she didn't deserve that ending. None of us did. That night, I went to Mom's grave again. The sky was heavy with clouds, the kind that hold their breath before a storm. I knelt, fingers tracing the carved letters of her name. Mom, I whispered, I think it's finally over. The wind rustled the trees like a sigh. I found the truth. It's ugly and it hurts, but it's yours, and maybe now I can stop running from it. I set a small box on the grass, inside a piece of her handwriting, the original bakery recipe she'd kept hidden. Sweetness isn't weakness, Crystal, it's survival. I smiled through the tears. You were right, always. When I stood, Daniel was there, holding an umbrella over me. Ready to go? Yeah, I said softly. Home. For the first time in years, that word didn't feel like a wound. The weeks that followed felt like walking through the aftermath of a storm, quiet but filled with debris. Everywhere I went, people recognized me. Some whispered, some smiled, most just stared. I was Crystal from Leela's legacy anymore. I was the daughter who brought her family down. And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. The truth was messy, but it was mine. Vanessa's trial came first. The courtroom was packed, reporters, former employees, curious strangers. I sat behind the prosecution table, Maggie beside me. Vanessa looked smaller than I remembered. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit, but her eyes still carried that same sharp arrogance, a blade dulled by denial. When the judge read the charges, conspiracy, fraud, medical bribery, she didn't flinch. But when the recording of Dad's confession played, she turned pale. The words filled the room again. Leela wasn't supposed to suffer. They promised it. Look natural. Vanessa's lip trembled, the first crack in her mask. Then the prosecutor played another clip, one from the hospital camera, showing her bracelet flashing under the light as she accepted the envelope from Dr. Lane. Vanessa's composure shattered. She slammed her hands on the table, shouting, "You don't understand. She was going to destroy everything." The judge's gavel cut through her voice like thunder. Order in the court. The silence that followed felt like the whole room was holding its breath. Afterward, Maggie and I stood outside on the courthouse steps. Reporters were waiting, microphones raised, flashes popping like fireworks. I said only one thing: truth doesn't fix the past, but it keeps it from poisoning the future. That quote ended up on half the front pages the next day. I didn't mean for it to sound poetic. It was just what was left to say. Dad's sentencing came later. He didn't fight it. He accepted the charges, pleaded guilty, and refused to appeal. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he turned to me. "I've already said everything that matters," he said quietly. "My daughter deserves peace, I don't." For the first time, there was no bitterness in his voice, just exhaustion, regret. I wanted to hate him, but all I felt was pity. Maybe that was forgiveness in its weakest form, not love, not absolution, just release. After the trials, I sold the old house. I couldn't live in those walls anymore. Too many ghosts. Instead, I used part of the inheritance to expand Leela's legacy. We opened a second location downtown, near the waterfront, sunlight streaming through tall windows, plants in every corner, my mother's favorite recipes painted in cursive on the wall. People came not just for pastries, but for what the cafe had become, a symbol of second chances. Daniel stayed by my side through all of it. He handled the business, the press, the late-night breakdowns when I'd wake up sweating from dreams of hospital monitors and cold hands. One evening, as we locked up the new store, he said, "You ever think about what comes next?" I smiled faintly. "Next? Yeah, you've spent years fighting ghosts. What do you do when they're finally gone?" I looked around the empty cafe, the smell of sugar and coffee hanging in the air. "Maybe I stop fighting," I said softly. "Maybe I just live." He reached for my hand. "Then let's start there." A month later, I got a letter from a small-town lawyer in Nevada. It was short and simple. Estate of Lauren Hale. Beneficiary, Crystal Zimmerman. Inside was a key to a storage unit. When I opened it, there wasn't much. A few boxes, a notebook, and an envelope with my name. The note inside read, "You were right. I wanted revenge, but you wanted truth. I think your mom would have liked that. I didn't mean to become her ghost. Don't make the same mistake." I stood there for a long time, the smell of dust and old paper filling the silence. For all her cruelty, Lauren had been another broken piece in the same cracked mirror. And in some strange, painful way, she'd helped me see the whole reflection. One evening, months later, I visited Mom's grave again. The air was warm, the grass overgrown with wildflowers. I placed a fresh loaf of sourdough, her recipe, on the headstone. "I kept it going," I whispered. "Your bakery, your name, your kindness." The sunset painted everything gold. "I finally understand what you meant, Mom. Sweetness isn't weakness, it's strength that doesn't need to scream. You gave me that." I closed my eyes, let the wind brush my face. For the first time, the ache in my chest felt lighter. When I got back to the cafe that night, Daniel was closing the register. He looked up with that easy smile that still caught me off guard sometimes. "How's she doing?" I smiled back. "Resting is easy, I think." He nodded, wiping his hands. "Good, you deserve that too." I leaned against the counter, watching the last of the sunlight spill through the window. "Maybe," I said, "but I had to burn through hell to earn it." He chuckled. "Then you're proof heaven can start anywhere, even in a bakery." Later, after he left, I walked through the empty cafe, touching the tables, the counters, the walls. Every inch of it was built on pain turned into purpose. I unlocked the front door, stepped outside, and looked up at the new sign we'd hung that morning. Leela's legacy, truth always rises. The words glowed softly in the night, reflected in the window glass like a promise kept. I smiled. You were right, Mom, it did. And for the first time in years, I felt peace, not the absence of pain, but the quiet knowing that I'd survived it. It's strange, the way silence sounds after years of noise. For so long, my life was filled with courtroom echoes, shouting matches, and the hum of reporters chasing pain. Now, when I wake up, all I hear is the faint clatter of spoons, the hiss of an espresso machine, and the laughter of strangers who have never heard the word Zimmerman before. That's how I know I made it out. It's been a year since the trials ended. Vanessa's serving time. My father's in a minimum security facility where he teaches accounting to other inmates. Sometimes I get letters from him, short ones, always ending with "I'm proud of you." The first time I read that, I almost tore it up. But something in his handwriting, shaky, humbled, made me pause. I didn't write back, but I didn't throw it away either. Maybe forgiveness isn't a door you walk through. Maybe it's a window you keep cracked open, just enough to let the air in. Leela's legacy has grown. We opened 3 branches now, one in Portland, one in Seattle, and one by the Oregon coast where Mom always dreamed of retiring. Every wall carries a piece of her story. Customers write messages on paper leaves and pin them on a corkboard near the counter. My mom used to bake like yours. Your story helped me leave a toxic family. Thank you for reminding me that sweetness still exists. I read them every morning while the ovens warm up. They remind me that pain doesn't die when it's exposed, it transforms. It becomes something softer, like dough rising again after being punched down. Daniel and I never really defined what we are. We just fit. Quietly. Naturally, he helps with the bakery expansion, keeps me grounded when I start spiraling into old guilt. Sometimes he'll look at me with that gentle half-smile and say, "You don't have to keep earning peace, Crystal. You already paid for it." And I'll laugh because peace still feels like something on layaway, something I'm learning to afford a little at a time. Maggie visits on Sundays. We sit on the back patio, drink coffee, and talk about everything but the past. She always brings fresh tulips for Mom's picture on the shelf. Your mother would have loved this, she says, glancing around the cafe. I hope so, I answer. But deep down, I know she would have. Not because of the success or the name, but because I finally baked with the same ingredient she always said mattered most: truth. Sometimes, when the sun starts setting and the windows glow gold, I close the bakery early and drive out to the coast. There's a cliff that overlooks the water. Mom used to bring me there as a kid. I bring a basket of pastries, sit on the hood of my car, and just breathe. The waves crash below like applause from the universe. The wind carries salt and freedom in equal measure. That's where I scatter pieces of the past: a letter, a photo, a bracelet I used to hate wearing because Vanessa gave it to me. I let the tide take them, one by one, not as revenge, not even as closure, just as release. Because healing isn't forgetting, it's finally remembering without flinching. Last month, a journalist asked me if I'd ever write a book about everything that happened. I told her, no, it's not a story I want people to read, it's one I want them to taste. That's why every new menu item comes with a story card, recipes inspired by moments in my life. The second chance scone, made with imperfect dough, because mistakes can still rise beautifully. Forgiveness tart, bitter chocolate with sea salt, because some sweetness only comes after you've tasted the salt. Leela's lemon bread, bright, messy, and healing in ways words can't describe. People ask if these names are marketing. They're not, they're memorials. A few weeks ago, a young woman came into the cafe, maybe 20, eyes red from crying. She ordered a coffee and sat in the corner for hours. Before she left, she came to the counter and said, "I read your story. My dad stole from me, too." I thought I'd never get back up, but now maybe I can. She smiled, small, shaky, but real. And in that moment, I realized what Mom meant when she said baking keeps people alive. She didn't mean the food. She meant hope. I still visit the cemetery sometimes, but not to mourn anymore. Now I bring fresh bread and sit by Mom's grave with the smell of yeast and butter in the air. "Guess what, Mom?" I'll whisper. "They're publishing Leela's legacy cookbook next spring." And I didn't put any of the bad recipes in. I always imagine her laughing at that. Sometimes I tell her about Dad's letters, about the new store, about Daniel's ridiculous obsession with labeling flour jars. And sometimes I just sit in silence because I know she's listening. A few days ago, I found one of her old notes tucked inside a recipe binder I'd never opened. It was simple. Written in her slanted handwriting, smudged with flour, "Crystal, the world will try to teach you that sweetness is weakness. Don't believe it. The world breaks hard things first. Be soft anyway." I read it 3 times before I could breathe again. That note now hangs above the bakery counter. Every customer who walks in sees it before they order. It's not a quote from a cookbook or a speech. It's a survival guide. I used to think revenge would fix everything, that if I just made them pay, the ache would stop. But justice doesn't erase pain, it just makes room for healing to grow. And when healing comes, it doesn't arrive with thunder. It comes quietly, like dough rising overnight, slow, steady, inevitable. Sometimes I still dream of Mom, not in hospitals or kitchens or courtrooms, just in sunlight. She's standing in the bakery, dusting sugar over pastries, humming the same song she always did. She turns to me and says, "See? It all rose just like it was supposed to." And when I wake up, the morning light spills across my face, warm and golden. The smell of bread fills the air, and I finally believe her. If I've learned anything, it's this: the past doesn't disappear when you heal. It becomes part of the recipe, something that changes the flavor of who you are. And if you're lucky, you learn to turn bitterness into something sweet. That's what I do now. Every day, I bake, I breathe, I live. Because the light that left when she died, somehow, it stayed inside me. And I think that's what legacy really means.